Absolutely not, his wife declared. He's the last person to commit murder. No one could ask for a better or more generous son-in-law, his mother-in-law stated. No way, he would not have done such a thing, his mistress exclaimed in disbelief. So who was this paragon of a man? Well, perhaps not such a paragon after all, given that he was cheating on his wife and apparently suspected of committing murder. But anyway, praised by all those who knew him as a caring, generous, and considerate person, but who had the terrible misfortune of being involved in 3 tragic car accidents that killed 3 people. Bak, known as an honest and hard-working businessman, owned 2 big apartments in Dongducheon, a city about 40 kilometers north of Seoul, the capital of South Korea, and had a reputation for treating his mother-in-law especially well. First misfortune that befell this man was the loss of his first wife, who was 29 at the time, back in October 1996 when he was 30. Bak was behind the wheel, with his wife sitting in the passenger seat, when a driver crashed into his car at a 3-way intersection in Yangju, a city not far from the capital. Bak managed to escape with only minor injuries, but tragically, his wife lost her life in the crash. The other driver admitted he was at fault, and his insurance company paid out a total of 145 million Korean won, the equivalent of about $110,000 in wrongful death settlement, and compensation for injury-related medical costs. It was no problem for Bak to collect this insurance payout, since he had the legal right of inheritance as the husband of the deceased. No autopsy was performed, because neither the police nor the insurance company found anything suspicious about his wife's death. After all, the other driver had admitted he was at fault, and at her husband's insistence, she was cremated instead of being buried. 2 years later, in September 1998, Bak was again behind the wheel, with his 28-year-old younger brother riding shotgun this time, and he crossed over the center line and hit a car that had been waiting for the light to change. Bak was driving his brother's second-hand car, which he had so generously bought for his brother, offering to replace his previous gas-guzzling, big-size, older model car with a more economical smaller one, in addition to paying for the car insurance. The car did not come with airbags, though his previous car did. Sadly, his brother died in the crash, and curiously enough, he had taken out 3 life insurance policies a few months earlier, in which he named his older brother Bak as the beneficiary. This time, the police became somewhat suspicious and looked into the car accident, but learned that the 2 brothers, who ran a business together, were so close that Bak had bought a car for his younger brother, to help him save money on gas and even paid for the insurance. In the absence of any other suspicious direct evidence, no autopsy was performed, and the police decided to take no further action. Bak received 600 million Korean won, or about $450,000 in insurance payout, which was not deemed suspicious as it is not that uncommon to name one's siblings as the beneficiary. Bak married again in the same year of his brother's death, and by all accounts, was a devoted husband and an ideal son-in-law, and his business prospered. In the early morning hours of one day in April 2006, 8 years after his brother's death, Bak was again behind the wheel, with his second wife's brother in the passenger seat, when he crashed into a bridge post. He had been driving at about 80 kilometers per hour, or about 50 miles per hour, and although he was not seriously injured, his brother-in-law unfortunately lost his life in the crash. He also happened to have several life insurance policies, and a total of 1.25 billion won, or about $950,000, was to be paid into the bank account of the mother of the deceased, the beneficiary, or in other words, Bak's mother-in-law. The insurance company thought it strange that Bak had been involved in 3 car accidents in which he was the driver, and did not suffer serious injuries while the person in the passenger seat, all of whom were his close family members and had life insurance policies, died every single time. There was also the fact that Bak, not the beneficiary, was the one who made the insurance claim, so the company refused to pay. But Bak sued and won, and the company issued the payment to the beneficiary's bank account. Police had also been conducting their own investigation, but could not arrest the man as there was no hard evidence of foul play. They just knew something was not right. The car was not that badly damaged, the driver was hardly injured, and yet the passenger was dead. Breakthrough in the case finally came in 2012, 6 years after this third accident, when the police received a tip-off that Bak had faked the car accident that supposedly killed his first wife, and then collected the insurance money. After 3 months of conducting undercover investigation to collect evidences one by one, police arrested Bak and 2 other accomplices in June 2012. During the investigation, the police asked Korea Insurance Development Institute, a non-profit corporation, to look into this car accident, and upon conducting simulated crash tests, The institute determined that Bach could not have been driving at 80 kilometers, or 50 miles per hour as he claimed, but more likely about 30 kilometers, or slightly over 18 miles, a speed highly unlikely to result in fatality. Through the investigation, the police learned that Bach, who was actually the head of a gang, raised funds for operating his gang by working as a used car dealer. When he had trouble raising enough funds, he summoned two junior gang members, Yu and John, and instructed them to kill his wife, saying he'd conceived of a plan to raise money through insurance fraud. Yu stormed out, exclaiming there was no way he could kill someone he regarded as his sister-in-law. But John agreed to take part in the murder. At a parking lot on the night of 6 October 1996, John got into the back seat of Bach's car and strangled Bach's wife, who had been sitting in the passenger seat from behind. With his dead wife in the passenger seat, and shockingly, his two young children in the back seat. Completely oblivious to the fact that their mother was dead, Bach drove toward a nearby three-way intersection. John followed in another car, then deliberately crashed into Bach's car while making a left turn. Children were barely hurt, but Bach's wife was ruled dead in the accident, and he pocketed the insurance money. Bach was the one who'd bought the car for John to drive at night, and also paid for the insurance that paid a large settlement if the driver caused an accident. Using the money he received in exchange for his wife's life, he turned to loan sharking and also opened a bar. Less than 2 years later, on July 15, 1998, he took out 3 life insurance policies in his younger brother's name through an insurance agent he knew well, naming himself as the beneficiary. 2 months later, he replaced his brother's car with another that had no airbags, and about 10 days later, killed his brother in the car he'd bought and collected the insurance payout. Police were not able to determine whether he'd killed his brother by drugging him with sleeping pills or by striking him with a blunt weapon. Bach adamantly denied that he'd killed his brother, claiming he died in the accident. And too many years had passed for the police to collect any applicable evidence to charge him for this murder. As for the case of his brother-in-law, Bach used a burner phone and pretended to be the brother-in-law to take out the 3 life insurance policies. And how did he collect the insurance payout when his mother-in-law was the beneficiary? Well, Bach opened 2 bank accounts in her name and was able to collect the money without anyone knowing about this. Such a thing is now impossible with strict identity verification in place, but it was possible back then. He also approached Shen, the husband of his wife's sister who had no regular job, and talked him into helping him kill Li, their brother-in-law, by promising him big money. Bach gave his brother-in-law a drink laced with sleeping pills, and after he passed out, beat him to death with a blunt weapon, carried him to the passenger seat of his car with Shen's help, and intentionally crashed into a bridge post. It is Yu, the gang member who'd refused to kill Bach's first wife, who gave the police the tip-off. There was another appalling crime the police uncovered. Bach had been having an affair with a 41-year-old married woman named Choi, whom he came to know while playing online games. When she complained of discord with her husband, Bach proposed taking out life insurance policies in her husband's name, kill him in a car accident, and live a happy life together with the insurance money. Believing that Bach loved her, she agreed to the plan. In January 2006, the woman laced her husband's herbal medicine with sleeping pills, which Bach gave her, and called him once her husband was passed out. Together with Shen, the husband of his wife's sister, he carried the woman's husband to Shen's car and had him drive around in search of a suitable place to kill him while Bach followed in his own car. The man, however, started to wake up before Shen could kill him, and panicking, he phoned Bach, who instructed him to set the man down on the road and run him over. After letting the dazed man out of the car and accelerating to knock him down, Shen felt he could not commit murder in cold blood, and turned the steering wheel just before ramming into him head-on. He could not completely avoid hitting him, however, and immediately took the fallen man to the hospital. Although he managed to survive, he was gravely injured and had to spend 2 years in the hospital. To the end, he could not recollect how he came to be injured and ended up in the hospital, and Choi took care of him for 2 years out of guilt, after which the two separated and then divorced in 2012 before the police came knocking on her door. After her arrest, she told the police that she was rather relieved to have been caught, and that it was difficult to live with a guilty conscience. Astoundingly, she had still been thinking that Bach was a pretty decent man and was stunned speechless when the police told her about all the murders he had committed. Shen, the accomplice, denied any wrongdoing at first, but when he realized the police had built a strong case against him, confessed to his crime and said that his biggest regret was getting tangled up with Bach and that the man scared him. As for Bach, he kept changing his statements, refused to take any lie detector test, showed no signs of remorse, and even threatened the detective in charge, "Watch out, I'll come and see you once I get out of jail." In the first trial held on the 7th of July 2012, Bach, charged with 1 count of attempted murder of the husband of his mistress, and 2 counts of first-degree murder of his brother and brother-in-law. Only admitted to attempted murder and denied killing his brother and brother-in-law. His lawyer also refuted the murder charges, stating that the prosecution had no direct evidence to back up their arguments. He could not be charged with the murder of his first wife, as the statute of limitations had passed, and John, the gang member who strangled her but denied doing so, also could not be indicted. On the 8th of January 2013, Bak was sentenced to life in prison, and Shin, his accomplice, to 4 years imprisonment, and Choi, his mistress, to 3 years imprisonment. Driven by monetary greed, the defendant destroyed the basic ethics of family relationships, judge said, adding, despite the extremely heinous nature of his crimes, he shows no remorse for his wrongdoings, and this court, therefore, sentences the defendant to life imprisonment with complete deprivation of freedom. Judge also explained that the court suspects the defendant of killing his brother, but has no choice but to declare him not guilty as there is not enough evidence to convict him, and that the light sentences for the other defendants were based on the fact that Shin immediately rushed the victim to the hospital, and Choi nursed her husband back to health. Bak collected about 2 billion Korean won, or approximately $1.5 million, by killing off his family members one by one. Detective described Bak as a psychopath who toyed with them and remained cool throughout the investigation. The press called him the devil in human eyes, a fitting name indeed, don't you think?